Hi, folks. Thank you for joining us. I am your host in this program here. My name is John Peterson, and you are watching Public Affairs. And this edition of Public Affairs has to do with a subject matter that I think you're going to be very interested in hearing about. It has to do with youth advocacy to help the youth in our community. We have with us today representatives from the National Youth Advocacy Program. We have the regional coordinator here, Ms. Jennifer Lowry. We also have a foster parent who's functioning in that organization and role. We'll be talking to both of them, and we hope that this information we give to you today will be helpful. If any of you know of a youth at risk, then please pay close attention and take notes from like phone numbers and things that you will have, that you may get in touch with these folks and find help for the youth that is in need, or maybe you want to be able to help the youth, and that will be something else for you to contact them about. So let me introduce to you folks Ms. Jennifer Lowry.
Hello.
So the regional coordinator,
yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So NYAP, NYAP, we can use those terms interchangeably, I suppose. It's a little faster to say NYAP, right?
Right.
You've been around for a long time, 1978.
Yes.
That's 43 years.
I know, that's
Can you
a
talk a
long
little bit
time.
about how that got it started?
Sure. Our founder founded the company here in Ohio, which is exciting. He actually went to Bluffton, and he started the company because he was an orphan. So he had been an orphan, and so he started NYAP.
Started by an orphan.
Yes, started by an orphan. Yes, and so we have been in Ohio since 1978. We have grown. We are a national company. Right now, we probably have over 2,000 youth that are in foster care in the company. So we are providing services for those at-risk youth that need homes. There's a lot of youth in the state of Ohio. I think there's 16,000, the last stats say 16,000 youth are in need out-of-home placement in the state of Ohio.
So this is just my take. If a man and a woman that maybe did not have good parenting, but then they become parents themselves, and they don't know how to parent children, then the frustration of that sometimes leads to problems.
Yes.
How do you help that? Is there a way for you to help that?
Sure, we have several programs. One of the things that is key is to prevent out-of-home placement, right? So there's prevention services. There are funding sources that are coming down. States are doing different pilot programs to try to help those youth so they don't go out of home. So one of the programs that we started here in Marion County is our intensive in-home services. And so the goal of that program is really family preservation, to try to work with the families and the youth so that we don't have to remove the youth out of the home. I mean, there are those times where it's absolutely necessary for a youth to be removed, and then in those scenarios, then we'll help to find placement for those. But those that can still be in the home, we go in. Nate is one of those workers that works in that program as well. We'll go in the home anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week, and we work with the families, the youth in the homes. We'll work on parenting, conflict resolution, all types of things just to keep that kid in the home. So we work very close with the counties, probation officers, all those types of things. Yes.
So I want to highlight something you just said and ask you to enlarge on it a little bit. You want to preserve the family.
Yes, absolutely.
Intact.
Yes.
Child stays in the home. You want to preserve that. Can you enlarge that a little bit?
Yeah, that is the goal. I mean, we want families to be reunified. Even when we have youth that are in foster care, the goal is always family reunification.
Okay.
Right? That's the goal. I mean, there are those times where counties have permanent custody or temporary custody, but the goal is to get that youth back to that family. So our job at NYAP with foster youth is to keep them safe and stable, help them so that they can go back home.
So if my wife and I have a child and we're frustrated because we didn't have good parenting skills and we don't really know how to parent a child, and we're frustrated with this task that we don't know how to do, we should consider you our friend.
Yes, absolutely.
And we can contact with you, and then you can, like, come and get to know us, and perhaps you can help us learn how to do this.
Yes, because
Right?
it's challenging, right?
Yes.
It's definitely challenging to be a parent. And one of the things that we see when we talk about those youth at risk, when I talk to you about there's about nearly 16,000 children in the state of Ohio that are at risk for out-of-home placement, there's 3,000 youth in foster care, right? And there's about, out of that 3,000, 1,200 of them are over the age of 13. So what we're really seeing is this need for people to help teenagers, right? Teenagers are really something that we're seeing more and more. There's no placements, no place for them to go. And teenagers are tough anyway,
Yeah.
right?
So one of the ways then that you help this, okay, you have programs that assist the family unit to try to, do conflict resolution, et cetera, you talked about. So you talked about programs that basically assist the family,
Yes.
mom and dad and child, to resolve this so that it doesn't become something, extreme or whatever. But you also obviously have people who serve as foster parents. Can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. We have foster parents. That's a big part of what NYAP does. We recruit foster parents. We train foster parents. We get to know foster parents, right?
Let's rewind on that. So you recruit, obviously you have to recruit them, right?
Yes.
But you also said train them.
Yes.
So if someone out there is thinking about wanting to, to help society and to perhaps be a foster parent and maybe doesn't know exactly how to do that, there's training programs for them,
Yes.
right? So they should write that number down, and they should contact you
Absolutely.
folks, right?
Yes.
So then you have brought with you one of those marvelous people, right?
Yes.
The foster parents. And Nathan, we're really, really glad you're here. I'm not a foster parent. That would seem to me a very challenging role, especially for a child at risk that maybe I have training, but maybe implementing that training, maybe a handful.
Sure.
So speak to this whole subject from the perspective of a foster parent. How did you get involved? Why did you get involved? What does this whole thing look like?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having us. I guess, interestingly enough, when I was talking with Jennifer, when I got hired by NYAP, that we both came to this role that we're in currently through similar circumstance, but I was adopted as a baby. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that eventually when I became a parent myself, that it was very important for me to consider adoption. And so my wife and I, when we had gotten married, that was one of the things that we had talked about, and we ended up becoming foster parents. We've been foster parents now for 4 years, and in 3 years, we ended up adopting 5 children.
Wow.
So it was one of those things where we went from 0 to 5 very quickly. But
Training for that?
yeah, well, there's no training for having 5 kids under 7 years old.
But you had some training.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. It was, it's not only is it a requirement in the state that you have foster training, but also it's, the way foster programs are designed, you're really going to be taking only placements that you feel comfortable with, so that
Yes.
you would know what kind of issues a child potentially could have before you take a placement.
So let me interrupt you for a moment. If someone is out there and he or she or both are wanting to or considering becoming youth foster parents, that their skill level is not because they're not very high because they haven't done this before, but there's training available. But then they have some concerns about I may be given a child that I literally can't function with, right? So I'm assuming this is true, but correct me if I'm wrong. So the foster parent has a acceptance role. In other words, you can accept a certain child or not, depending upon the things that you can talk about. But So if someone out there is considering becoming a foster parent, what would you have to say to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Being a foster parent is really one of the most important things that we've ever done, and certainly anyone that I know of. Because of that level of importance, I think you want to be sure that bringing a child into your home is going to be right, not only for you, but also if there are other kids in the house, if you have your kids of your own. So, very specifically, you can say these are the kinds of kids that we're comfortable with taking right now.
Is it a good fit or not?
Right, and whether it's through the county or through NYAP that they call about a potential placement, we're going to tell you everything that we know about the child's history. Now, inevitably, you're going to find that there's going to be a whole list of other things that simply we didn't know about, because you're going to know the child better than we do after they're in your house for a week.
Sure.
But yeah, I've had a lot of people that have come up and asked about this, and they thought, well, you become a foster parent and then they're just going to send any kid over to your house.
No.
You have quite a bit of say about what you're going to be comfortable
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Jennifer, so let me paint the following picture and then have you speak to this.
Okay.
This little boy, call him Sammy or Johnny, whatever you want to call him, but his parents don't have skills to raise him well, parent him well, and there's frustration in the household. He doesn't get the attention, maybe he doesn't get the understanding, the attention, validation, whatever that he needs, and he feels like he's abandoned or not appreciated or whatever. When the damage starts happening, then this problem starts to go out of control. If that problem spins out of control, this person may be later in life be called a felon, right? I mean, go to prison, because the thing is that severe.
Right.
So, based upon, I'm picking up now from what Nathan said, that if you're a foster parent, you have the possibility, if not likelihood, of redeeming a child from a very, very, very bad future.
Yes.
Right? So speak to this from your perspective as a coordinator, as someone who has a lot of experience in this field. How do you see the redemption of this? Well, what does that look like?
Sure, and I think this is a great question, because sometimes people will talk about, when we talk to people about fostering, and we're asking questions, and I hear all type of reasons why people don't want to foster. And one of the things that is so important is sometimes this is the only chance that the youth have.
Yes.
Right? And so when the youth come into the home, a lot of times they are angry. Right?
Yes.
They are upset. They're in a stranger's house.
Right.
Right? They
Right.
probably want to be in their environment,
Right.
whether it was good or bad.
Right.
Right? They
Right.
still probably will want to be with their parents.
Right.
And so when we bring them into the home, a lot of times there are behaviors, and sometimes teens will act out, or even youth. But the redemption part,
Yes.
right? Just recently we had a town hall down in Cincinnati, and a couple of youth spoke. Well, it brought tears to my eyes, because one of the young ladies hugged her foster mom and said if it had not been for her, she knew she would be on the streets or in jail or dead. So that woman cared for her, took her back into her home. Like, even though she may have done some things where, we would want to just say get out, she kept taking her back. And because of that, today, she's going into, I think, the National Guard or something.
The image that came to my mind when you were speaking is, this is not about blaming anybody for a problem.
No, it is
Redemption
not at all.
has nothing to do with blame or guilt. It has nothing to do with that. Speak to that, please.
No, it has nothing to do with that. This is not the kid's fault, right? This is not, we could blame the parents, we could blame society, we could blame the enemy, we could blame evil, but regardless, it exists.
Yes.
Right? So we have
So we have a human being.
Yes, who needs
here.
help.
And I mentioned this to you before we started here, that there's so folks, if you go to NYAP NYAP.org. If you go to that website and you read, you're going to read something like the following, that NYAP, you folks, what governs you is a statement that is one of the most powerful statements I've ever read, and that is we, society.
Yes.
We are united through our humanity,
Yes.
but we are enriched by our diversity. So, if this, where you come from, what your background is, race, ethnic, et cetera, has no bearing whatsoever. These are human beings
Yes.
that are in need of care. And when I'm using the term redemption, I mean where they are validated and loved and
Yes.
cared for and given hope and guidance and all the positive things. That's why you exist, right?
Yes, that is absolutely why we exist. When you talk about that and hearing Nate talk too, I was also adopted, right?
Yeah.
So it's a drive, right? It's something inside of me that has to help others, right?
Yes.
So the fact that I am as blessed as I am and as fortunate as I am because somebody took me in,
Yes.
gave me a home, and adopted me and loved me,
Yes.
right? My life would be completely different without
Yes.
that. Nate, yours the same.
Yeah.
So, just as it was done to us, at least I can speak for myself and Nate, we have that desire to do for others. And a lot of times people just don't realize the need. Like, the need is so great. I mean, the stories that we hear, the youth that we get into our care, they just really need a place to call home.
Yeah.
And not to be kicked out again.
So, folks, if I can say this, we have before us two people who were adopted, who are both passionately involved in wanting to assist, redeem, love, care for, train up, etc., those less fortunate, right?
Yes.
And so, Nathan, as a foster parent and having formerly at-risk youth, now living in your home, if there's a child out there watching, and that child feels that there's no hope, I know it's difficult to think about conscripting the child, I understand that, but I'm saying there's children out there who may be afraid and don't know where to go next. So I know we don't usually talk like this, but there may be, I feel strongly urged that we need to speak to children that are watching maybe also. What would you have to say to them?
Well, I think I would say, first of all, that nobody wants out-of-home placement.
Yes.
There's not any child, we've often said, but it's true, you love your parents no matter how terrible they are.
Yeah.
And so there's an issue, always right away with trust, especially if a child's a little bit older. But actually, we find even with infants sometimes, or you can find the opposite problem with trust, where kids are so used to being thrown around to person that they will trust anybody, and they don't have that safety barrier that stops them from doing that.
Yes.
But I think I believe that all kids deserve to be loved
Yeah.
and cared for.
Yes.
And one of the things that I wanted to bring up, especially with our three youngest that we've adopted, we've done quite a bit of work with the birth parents. And so
That's interesting.
which is not all foster parents do that, but you certainly have the ability to do it, and I believe that it's very helpful. So we started off by sending messages when they would come for visits, and we would just send messages on a piece of paper saying, this is when he ate last, this is what's been going on this week.
Right.
And then that evolved into contact with, via text, and we'll send pictures.
Yes.
And a strange thing has happened over the last few years where we have become parents of the birth parents.
That's really interesting.
And both of them, both parents, both mom and dad, are in prison right now. Both have drug addictions, and they write us letters every week, and probably once every week or so we get a collect phone call from the prison, and they call, but it's no longer even about the children that we have now adopted that are ours, but we've become the only positive influence in their lives.
That's one of the most powerful testimonies I believe I ever heard. That you become parents of the parents.
Yes.
So we have some time left. There's parents out there that are struggling.
Yes.
They didn't have a good role model. They don't know how to parent. They're frustrated. They have children. The frustration boils over from time to time. They need you. Help them understand why.
Sure. Just the frustration of parenting, if you feel like parents that you are extremely struggling, because kids are hard, right? There's not a book that says this is exactly how you parent, because every child is different. Every child needs something different, right? So I would say to you, if you are struggling in any way right now with your children and you're just at your wits' end, call for help, right? Call for help. Of course, you can call NYAP. We have outpatient mental health services where we can do counseling with the parents.
And there's no risk.
No, there's no risk. Just to get help, right? It's okay to talk to people. It's okay to say this is hard. This is really hard right now. My youth or my teenager is acting out. Parenting is tough. I have 3 sons, and let me tell you, they are tough, right? So parenting is hard, and you need support. So I would say reach out. You can reach out to NYAP. You can call us at the 419 number. You can look at the services that we have, but just call, right? There's things that are out there for your help. We are now doing something called FFT, which is family functional therapy, where we go in and we work with everybody in the family that is there. So everyone does have to be present. And the goal of that, again, is to preserve the family, to get the family functioning in a level that will help them to be successful.
I think the most important thing, if I were in the situation where I had children that I just didn't know what to do with, I didn't know how to raise them, whatever, there was frustration, the frustration was low. I might think that it is hopeless.
Right.
But it's not.
It's not hopeless.
No.
Look at us.
Yeah. That's why I'm so glad you guys are here. This isn't hopeless.
No,
right?
It's not hopeless.
Not only were you helped,
Yes.
but you're now helpers,
Yes.
right? And so if somebody's watching this, I did a whole bunch of people watching this, but I'm saying if somebody's watching this who is wanting to know how to deal with life and struggles and particularly parenting issues and stuff, that you're among their best friends. They just don't know it yet,
Yes.
right? So if somebody is out there and they're a parent and they're struggling and they're watching this, what would you say to them?
Well, I would tell them that it's okay to get help. Everybody needs help.
Yes.
I don't have all the answers.
Right.
I think my wife does, but I don't. But
she may feel the same way.
right, just in case she watches this. But no, it's okay, and that's probably the first thing is to acknowledge that you need help. That's one of the biggest areas that I think that we struggle with is that there are programs like ours that are available that have parenting classes, that have trauma-informed classes, so that you can...
Stop. Trauma-informed classes.
Yes.
That's a big one. Can you do that in 30 seconds?
30 seconds, yeah. So any of the kids that we're dealing with, that we're working with, are going to have trauma.
Yes.
Whether it's trauma from their parents, from neglect, from abuse.
Right.
And so the challenge is that whether it's a grandparent or another kin that takes over parenting for these kids,
Yes.
or if it's a foster parent or anyone in the community, that in order to effectively parent, you would be better off having a little bit of training on what kind of traumas these kids have gone through,
Yes.
Yes.
and what kind of approaches might be best to handle that. Because I think one of the classic failures is that, for example, a child will be removed from his parents, go live with grandma.
Right.
Well, grandma then has been a parent, so she's going to parent the same way that she always parented,
Yes.
and not identify the trauma
Yes.
in the child that maybe needs a different approach.
Yes.
And so that's something that that needs to be trained.
Yeah,
Yes.
I am so glad. So, put an addendum onto that. How would you state this? The trauma informed, the training to help a child. So you're a foster parent. You become a foster parent. Here's a child that's hurt, let's say.
Yes.
You have to understand something that hurt in order to help that, correct?
Right.
So this is where the information comes in, correct?
Yes.
Can you speak to that?
Sure. When he talked about trauma informed, and Nate is absolutely right, because the kids have experienced so much trauma. And so when they do come in the home, we need our parents to be able to not just show love, but to be effective. And
Yes.
sometimes that might mean if a kid is yelling or screaming, maybe it's not a good idea for the parent to scream back, right?
Yes.
Because maybe that could be a trigger.
Yes.
Right? And so it's understanding the behaviors of the youth, because a lot of times it's just, well, they disrespected me.
Yes.
We hear that one a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
They disrespected me, or they broke something in my house.
Yes.
Okay, I understand that, right? And I'll tell my parents, yes, they did break something, but listen, they've been through a lot.
Yes.
Let's get to the root of why.
Yes.
Right? So let's talk about why they're so upset.
Yes.
Not that they broke the door.
Right. Right.
or,
right.
or something like that. Let's
Right.
look at that.
We want to redeem this.
Yeah, we have to.
Right.
When I think about, who we are as people and the humanity, if we could just respect others' humanity,
Yes.
right?
And be enriched by our diversity.
Yes.
That would be marvelous.
Yeah, it would be amazing.
Yeah. So, folks, I hope you appreciate the conversation we're having here. Jennifer, we are very, very glad that you contacted us and we had an opportunity to get together and
Yes.
sit down and talk. Nathan, from your perspective, I cannot possibly imagine how great your gift to society is by being that, you and your wife, to being, foster parents. But we are very grateful that you came and gave us this understanding and opportunity to understand. And God bless you and all of your efforts from here on. Thank you very much. And folks, if I may talk to you just for a moment, we are grateful to you for watching this and just listening. So we ask you please to consider, if you know of someone, be it a set of parents or parent or a child, and there is a need, please contact these folks, because their gifting and their training and their opportunities are just almost limitless. If you need their help, please get in touch with them. I am grateful that you're watching. Again, I'm your host. John Peterson is my name. Thank you for watching.